What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to your Carolina Panthers weekly review. Um, I picked this game over Twitter. Of course, I did pick the Panthers. I didn't think they were gonna win, and what do you know? They didn't. The Saints ended up beating the Carolina Panthers 20-10. Um, I'm gonna get into what I liked. What both teams did well. Carolina defensively in the front seven actually looked pretty good. They did give up 100 yards rushing, but I thought they got some pressure on Drew Brees, and they made him work for those yards. He only averaged 3.3 a carry, so I thought they did a good job up front. The back end is a different story. The back end was terrible yet again. Um, you know, they could not cover despite the guys up front getting pressure. They still could not cover those Saints receivers. So you know it's pretty much something you expect every week out of that secondary. I'm just gonna get into both teams. Start with New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees, 24 34, 297 yards, one touchdown, one interception. He was sacked 4 times. I thought he played pretty good. They were able to get some pressure on him, and that lone interception was actually to me it should go down as a drop. Um, let's see, it was Kenny Stills. It was a pass to him. He was reaching down for it. It bounced up in the air, and K'Wan Short picked it off. Cam Newton, 10 of 28, not very efficient. 151 yards, one pick. Now that one pick also, as I said with Breeze, that one Cam Newton's lone pick was not his fault. Wide receiver bursting right in the hands. It would have been a first down. He catches that, but it goes through his hands. He tips it up. It gets picked off. Those are just some of the picks that go against the quarterback. Which, if you watch the game, you can see is clearly not the quarterback's fault. He was sacked 4 times as well. They were able to get some pressure on him. As usual, the offensive line does not do a good job protecting him. He also doesn't help out a lot by holding the ball, or just running around to where your offensive line doesn't know where you're at. One thing he's doing that I didn't like he did before, something he did with Steve Smith, I'm gonna say his first couple of years, and that was force the ball to one receiver. You saw he was doing it. He was forcing the ball down the field to Kelvin Benjamin. A few times the ball had a chance to get picked off. So, it seems like he's reverting back to that. He's under constant pressure in the pocket, and he's looking for someone to get open quickly. And that's the one guy who can make the tough catches, outside of Olsen. New Orleans rushing attack. Mark Ingram, 30 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Drew Brees had 4 carries, 2 yards, and he had a touchdown. Let me see. That's pretty much the guys that did the most in terms of contribution. The Carolina Panthers, Jonathan Stewart played again. DeAngelo Williams came back. He was out. He's been out for a few weeks. Jonathan Stewart, 8 carries, 46 yards. Of course, Cam Newton ran for the lone touchdown of this game. 7 carries, 43 yards, and a touchdown, of course. DeAngelo Williams, 8 carries for 20 yards. I thought they did okay running, but they couldn't put together any drives that they had in that first quarter. They had at least 2 drives, in which there was a penalty or the interception. So there were 2 killer drives, and also in that first quarter, there was a sack fumble of Cam Newton, which led directly to a New Orleans Saints touchdown. Turnovers can hurt, and they've been turning the ball over, especially when your offense hasn't been playing good. You can't play from behind. Moving on, New Orleans receiving. Jimmy Graham, 7 receptions, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Kenny Stills, 5 receptions, 72 yards. Brandon Cooks, 3 receptions, 38. Marcus Colson, three receptions, 36. Cadet, 3 receptions, 29. And Robert Meacham, 1 reception, 25. Next, Carolina side, Jericho Cotchery, 2 receptions, 59. D'Angelo Williams, 1 reception for 30. Greg Olsen, 3 receptions for 30. Kelvin Benjamin, 2 receptions for 18. He was targeted 10 times. Cam was forcing the ball to him. Jason Vaughn, 1 reception, 8 yards. And Williams, not D'Angelo Williams, 1 reception, 6 yards. It didn't look good. Cam was overthrowing guys. He was forcing the ball down the field. And, there was times we had to throw away because guys couldn't get open. Defensively, New Orleans up front, they were able to get some pressure on Cam. They did a good job against the run. Curtis Lofton played pretty good. I would say, the back end, they did a good job in coverage, especially against a guy like Kelvin Benjamin and Greg Olsen. Thought they did a good job of, they learned the tendencies of Cam Newton, and they were able to, be in position to not necessarily to make the play, but keep Cam from even attempting that throw, which Cam was still attempting those throws. But they did a good job in coverage, I think, for New Orleans in the back end. And up front, they was able to get pressure and slow down the run game. So I thought that defense played pretty good. Carolina side of things, as I said, up front, they played pretty good. Charles Johnson, we had the Charles Johnson sighting. He was able to get some pressure. Let's see. Of course, Luke Kuechly's attacking machine. Thomas Davis played good. Problem is, I think the guys up front played good. Problem is that back end. Those guys in the back end missed tackles, bad in coverage. Roman Harper, why is he still in the league? I just don't understand why is he still in the league. I'm pretty sure there's some guys out there in free agency who can produce more than this guy has been, doing. Yeah, he's got the picks, but they're just right place, right time. Balls is tipped to him. the guy misses tackles. He's bad in coverage. It also goes with guys like Melvin White, Antoine Cason. These guys have been terrible in coverage. Of course, they didn't do a good job today. They didn't do a good job against the run. Yards after catch, they were missing tackles yet again. The problem is in that secondary. The front seven, these last couple of weeks have actually stepped up. They played good against New Orleans. Guess what? Which caused, the Seahawks were able to drop. I'm sorry, they played good last week against the Seahawks. Seahawks, at the end of that game, was able to drive down the field, get a touchdown. Mainly through putting the ball in the air against that weak secondary. So that's definitely a huge problem for this team. And it wasn't. It was last year, but it's worse. It's magnified times 10. You can see it. You see it when you watch the games and rewind. You see how bad these guys in coverage. You got guys that's always out of position. And one thing I can't stand with cornerbacks, especially ones that get caught out of position or ones that just don't turn their head, is when they just reach at guys' arms, hoping the ball is there when their arms makes contact with a receiver's arms. More times than not, you're gonna get PI. And there was a play in which he got PI. I believe that play ended up leading it 21-7. Game was over. No, it was 21. It was 21-7. Yeah, it was 21-7. The game was over in my book because the offense wasn't moving the ball. The lone touchdown was a broken play and the Cam Newton running to the end zone. So, offensively for Carolina didn't look good. New Orleans, as I said, Carolina was able to keep them, was able to get some 3 and outs. They got a couple turnovers on them. Drew Brees fumble and interception. Problem is Carolina didn't capitalize on good drives, or they didn't capitalize off turnovers. And when you get turnovers against a New Orleans Saints offense, and and you put up some points, because that team can put up points. If you're able to get some turnovers on them, and get out to an early lead, that's what you want to do. You don't want them to get out an early lead on you, because of course Carolina struggles with coming back. But New Orleans Saints 27 first downs, Carolina only 15. Third down efficiency, New Orleans was 7 of 13, Carolina 6 of 14, not bad. New Orleans was still better. New Orleans converted 1 fourth down. 2 turnovers for both teams. Rushing yards was about the same. Penalties, penalties also, you wouldn't say there were a lot of penalties for Carolina, but there were penalties that one in particular was a hold. Let me see. I think it was by number 78. This happened in the first quarter. Carolina was driving, and holding penalties, to me, when your offense is not that great, is a backbreaker. It kills drives, and that pretty much killed the drive. And Carolina didn't get anything. New Orleans 4 penalties, 36 yards. Carolina 6 penalties, 67 yards. As I said, 2 turnovers for both teams, fumble and interception. Time of possession was clearly in New Orleans' favor. 35 minutes, 18 seconds to 24 minutes, 42 seconds. And that was because the Carolina offense just couldn't stay on the field. And the defense, to the defense's credit, offense didn't do much to help them. The turnovers don't help against a great offense. And just not being able to stay on the field, those guys couldn't get a rest. Especially after that first quarter, the drives just kept stalling. They weren't able to move the ball. Of course, they weren't able to get points, outside of the Cam Newton drive when he ran the ball in. Carolina just, you play good defensively, and then the offense doesn't show up. You play good offensively, and the defense doesn't show up. Special teams, whatever. If it isn't one problem 1 week, it's another. Next week, let me see. Check something. Carolina next week plays that Philadelphia to play the Eagles, so good luck against that. Hopefully we see something we haven't seen, since week 2, and there's the offense actually moving the ball, and the defense, as I said, it's been getting better, but secondary to me, you can't get any worse. You can only get better. I mean, they at least need to play solid. Make tackles. So that's all I'm asking. Make tackles, and at least make the receivers fight for the ball. And New Orleans San Francisco heads to New Orleans play them. San Francisco has some injuries, so New Orleans is very tough to beat at home. Could still be a good game. San Francisco still has a lot of talent on offense. Well, that pretty much does it for this week. Sorry I wasn't able to do it last week. I was tired. I actually did this one late. Wanted to do it yesterday, but I did it late today. I was watching the basketball games. The Cleveland Cavaliers Bulls games was really good. Went down to the overtime. So I was watching those, that and the Clippers and Lakers. I watched those games. Got around to doing it now. I had to rewatch the game, of course. I watched it live, but some things you just don't see until you watch it on rewind. And it's a big reason why I got rewind. But let me know what you think down in the comment section about this game. How did Carolina look? How did New Orleans look? What do you see moving ahead? We're past the halfway point of the season. Carolina's just not looking good to me. They're more than likely going to miss the playoffs, in my opinion. Still have a chance because the division hasn't been playing good. But New Orleans has been playing better the last couple of weeks. Of course, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. Thanks for watching.